Hey there. Thanks for joining me. This is Rachel Burns, and I am a certified financial planner and certified divorce financial analyst. And I am the founder of a firm called True Worth Financial Planning, which helps newly single women get their finances back on track after a divorce or after the death of a spouse. So, this is the first of a new weekly live series I'm going to be doing. It'll be I'll probably be alternating between Instagram and LinkedIn. So if you don't follow me on LinkedIn, I encourage you to do so that you make sure that you don't miss out on any content. But each week, I'm going to be going live on Thursdays at noon Pacific Standard Time, and I'll have a different topic each week. So I will talk about common questions that I get from clients, topics that I'm hearing a lot about, anything that I think might be relevant to you all. If there is a topic that you're interested in hearing about, please let me know. Feel free to, you can comment below, you can send me a DM, you can send me an email. Let me know. I'm totally happy to talk about whatever you guys are interested in hearing about. But for today, I'm going to talk about investing FOMO. And so if you're not a millennial, FOMO means fear of missing out. I had to explain that to my husband this morning. Fear of missing out is basically when you're bummed out that you missed out on something. And investing FOMO specifically, that's when you're bummed out because you missed out on some investment returns that your friend got or your family member got. So what I want to talk about today is how you can identify this FOMO in yourself, what you should do about it and how you can get over it, and then what you should actually do in terms of changes to your investments as a result of this FOMO. So we're going to dive into that. First of all, when you're in this situation where, let's say you're at Thanksgiving dinner, you're talking to your cousins and your cousins are like, oh, I made all this money in crypto. Let's say they're like, I made $10,000 in crypto. And I'm not picking on crypto. It's just something that happens to be kind of a popular thing that people are talking about. And then when you hear this, you're like, oh, I wish I had invested in that. You're bummed out because you missed out on the opportunity and it just makes you feel kind of crappy, or maybe you feel jealous or whatever. But you might be thinking, well, maybe I should jump on the bandwagon and, I want to get in on this. So before you do anything, I want you to think about some things. One is the numbers that they're reporting to you, whoever you're talking to that's telling you about how much money they made, the numbers that they're reporting to you are likely kind of misleading. And that's not because they are intentionally trying to mislead you or they're lying or they're exaggerating. It's just when people are telling you how much money they made, sometimes the information they give you is not complete, or it's just not what it seems. And I'm going to give you an example. So let's say you have two friends and both of them made $10,000 in Bitcoin. And one of them is, let's say, your friend Sally. She invested $1,000 of her savings into Bitcoin and she made $10,000 in profit. These are completely made up numbers. That is 1,000% return. That's pretty good. That's impressive. But then your other friend, Johnny, he made $10,000 in crypto, but he had invested $100,000 of his savings and he made a $10,000 profit. That's a 10% return. That's good, but not super exciting. So when these two people are each saying, I made $10,000 in this investment, they could be two very, very different scenarios and two different situations. And those two things are not equal. And one might not be quite as good of an investment seemingly as the other. So you need to keep that in mind. When someone is telling you how much money they made and they tell you on a dollar basis, you really need to think about what that is on a percentage basis. You need to know what they invested and then what the profit was out of it. Also, you need to know the time frame. That's something that is commonly kind of confused. So a great example of this is real estate, because I'm sure we can all relate. We all know someone who bought some house for some really low amount and they sold it for some ridiculous amount. Like we all know someone like that. I live in California where real estate is very expensive. And in the Bay Area specifically, near Silicon Valley, even more so. The real estate has become extraordinarily expensive. So everyone I know knows someone who bought a house in San Jose or San Francisco. They bought it for super low and they sold it for some ungodly amount. We all know someone in that situation. But let's say your Aunt Sally bought a house in San Jose for $100,000 and she sold it for $1 million. So that might seem like, oh my God, her $100,000 grew into $1 million. That's crazy. Real estate is the best investment ever. But what you're not thinking of is maybe Aunt Sally bought that in the 70s and she's owned that house for 50 years. So yes, she has made a very large return, but when you consider that on an annual basis, the average return that is on an annual basis, that's like 4.5%. That's not that exciting. You could probably make more money, or she could have made more money if she had just invested that in an index fund. But my point is, when someone says, oh, I sold this house for $1 million, I bought it for $100,000, that in itself is not super informative. So when you hear people telling you things like this, I don't want you to like get all excited, because it's just not the whole story. Another thing that you don't know is that person's financial situation. Because if they're telling you, I made all this money, they're probably not sharing the rest of the details about their financial situation. Not that they need to. But the things that you don't know is how much money they have. What's their net worth? How much money can they afford to lose? How much income are they bringing in? How much risk are they able to take? How much risk are they comfortable taking? These are all really important things that determine the appropriate investments for you. And when someone you don't know, or someone that you don't know their financial situation, when someone's telling you about this investment, you can't compare yourself to them because you have no idea, their financial situation. So let's look at another example. Let's say your friend Sally, same crypto example. She has a $10 million net worth and she invests $100,000 in GameStop, let's say. $100,000 is only a small part of her overall finances. And so she can afford to take risk if she wants to. If she is someone who is comfortable taking that much risk with her investments and she understands the risk that she's taking with an investment like that, then it's totally appropriate that she would invest in something super volatile like that. That's not a bad choice. That doesn't mean that you should do it, but that means that for Sally, that's fine. But then your friend Johnny, let's say he has a net worth of 0. He has a little bit of money, but he has a little bit of debt. So really he has a 0 net worth. And let's say he gets his hand on $5,000 for whatever reason. Maybe he gets a bonus. And he takes that $5,000 and he buys a bunch of GameStop. Johnny has made a dumb decision. Johnny really is not in a position to take that much risk. He is not on track for saving for his goals. He is not on track for saving for retirement. He's already behind. He has other things that he really needs to be using that money for. But instead, he's putting that in something that's exceptionally risky. And that's not a wise decision. Now, that's not to say that he can't make money in that GameStop stock, but if he does, he could get lucky. But investment-wise, it's not a wise investment for him. So really, you need to consider the differences in people's financial situations when you're comparing the investments that they're making versus the investments that you're making. So I want you to keep those things in mind when someone is telling you about this money that they made. Keep those things in mind. And I think that's going to prevent you from having these like overwhelming feelings of sadness or disappointment because you didn't participate in this amazing investment like your friend did. So instead of getting really sad and instead of just immediately going out and buying that investment. I want you to instead think rationally about your situation. I want you to think about your own financial details. I want you to think about what you have in terms of assets and income, whether this money needs to be going towards other things. If you truly have some money that you can afford to take risk with, then be aware of the risk that you're taking with that type of investment, and make sure that you are investing in something that you understand and can explain intelligently, which I think a lot of people are investing in things they don't understand right now. And another thing that I want you to keep in mind, and this is something that you might not want to hear, but if you get some sort of clever investment idea, whether you come up with it or your friend tells you or your Uber driver tells you that there's some investment opportunity that you can't miss out on, I want you to remember that think about all the other people that have access to that same information. It is very unlikely that you are the only person who has thought of that. It's very unlikely that this person that told you, in reality, there's probably many, many millions of people that have come to this same conclusion or have access to the same information. Any information that you hear, it's public information. If it wasn't public information, then that would be something like Martha Stewart did when she got arrested for insider trading. If you're thinking, oh, I'm going to buy some Apple stock because they're going to be releasing this new Apple Watch next month, and I think the revenues are going to raise. A lot of other people have access to that same information and have come to that same conclusion. So when you're thinking about making an investment based on this, just understand that there are probably a lot of other people who have already thought of that and acted upon that. So there are a lot of other people who have already bought or sold investments based on this information before you even have this idea. And think about all of the people who it's their full-time job to do investments. Maybe they're fund managers or they're research analysts. They're really, really, really smart, really experienced people who do this all day. That's all they do. They've probably already found these opportunities and acted upon them. So the hot tip that you get or the hot tip that you think of, it's probably not, it's probably already stale at that point. And it doesn't mean that you shouldn't make investments based on your expectations of things. It's just like, don't get overly confident in your own abilities to foresee certain things, because chances are you don't have any special knowledge, and chances are someone else has already thought of it and traded on it. And so I just want you to be careful and be realistic. So that might sound kind of depressing. I might be kind of bursting your bubble. But when you hear about these investments that sound really exciting, they sound too good to be true. You hear these really crazy stories about people making huge amounts of money. It's not necessarily because that person made a wise investment. That person might have gambled and won. That can happen. People can get lucky. That doesn't mean it was a good idea to begin with, just because it ended up working out fine for them. And that doesn't mean that you need to do it as well. So basically, when people are bragging to you about how much money they're making, now you know, okay, I'm not going to get super excited and act on this. I'm going to think rationally about this. I'm going to think about, the reality of this situation, and I'm going to make good decisions about my investments. If you are not sure about what investments are appropriate for you based on your situation, you can always get help with that. You can meet with a financial advisor. You can let me know if you want to chat about anything like that, but just don't be taking investment advice from your Uber driver. That's all I ask. So I hope this was helpful. If there's anything else you want to hear about, please let me know, and I will see you again next week. Thanks. Bye.